once again, thank you, and thank you guys for taking the time. Hopefully, this will be a good session. I'm sure a lot of you guys are already familiar with what's going on in the FCC and Industry of Canada with the 6 GHz spectrum. So I wanted to show you Cambium's position and how you can, start deploying and start doing things that you haven't been able to do in the past in the unlicensed world of fixed wireless broadband, and that is, multiple gigabits over long distances. So with that being said, let's move forward. Cambium, for those of you guys that are not familiar with Cambium, looking at the registration list, I think most of you guys are, but just in case you're not, we are that one-stop shop broadband provider of equipment. We do anything from point to point, point to multi-point, licensed, unlicensed, Wi-Fi, a whole a product portfolio of switches, and then a lot of software products to go along with that, including our CN Maestro NMS management software. So I'm sure a lot of you guys that have deployed Cambium are familiar with a lot of the things that you see on this slide. So for additional questions on that, we can certainly take it offline and we can have a different conversation. Like I mentioned today, we're gonna focus on 6 GHz and what Cambium has to offer in 6 GHz. First and foremost, why 6 GHz? Like I mentioned before, extremely high capacity, right? Up to 4 gigabits capacity per access point. These new AX chipsets can support 8x8 multi-user MIMO with beamforming. They support both 5 and 6 gigahertz spectrum, up to 160 megahertz and 4096 QAM modulation in 6 gigahertz. So again, much larger channels, higher degree of multi-user MIMO, and higher modulation, which all of this equates into much higher throughput per single customer over longer distances. And of course, it's a lot more scalable than any other 802.11 chipsets have been in the past, and it's interference tolerant, right? So now you can afford to operate in noisy environments. We don't expect that as much in 6 gigahertz as we do in 5 gigahertz, but it gives you a different dimension to deploy in noisier 5 gigahertz existing networks that you have deployed today. And of course, last but not least, everybody on this call, I'm sure, is in business to make money, right? Much lower cost product portfolio. You'll get your ARPU much quicker. And of course, with the CN Maestro management software at no cost, unless you want to purchase the CN Maestro X, but you don't need to in order to operate the network. The 3-year hardware warranty, which can be ignored. And of course, direct support from Cambium, from Winncom, and all our engineers and resources that we have. And again, last but not least, we have deployed more than 3 million radios from the EPMP platform, over the years. So obviously, this is the 4th generation. So a very, very mature product family that just continues to grow and continues to do pretty impressive things. The technology, like I mentioned before, we support both 5 and 6 gigahertz. It's separate hardware for each, but it is an EPMP 4500 and the 4600 line, 5 gigahertz on the 4500, 6 gigahertz on the 4600. Proven EPMP interface, TDD sync, AB channel reuse. Those are the things that Cambium has always stood for. This is how we, eliminate self-interference. This is how we can co-locate multiple access points, use larger channels by using 2 pairs per 360-degree deployments, allowing you to be extremely spectral efficient to use larger channels. Of course, like I mentioned before, higher degrees of modulations, larger channel sizes, uplink and downlink multi-user MIMO, all of these benefits that come with the 802.11 AX chipset, while it allows you to keep it at a much lower cost than some of the competitors on the market that are not as performant. Some of the tools available, again, CN Heat is our heat mapping service. This is a low cost subscription type of service, but one saved truck roll could pay for the 3-year subscription that we offer with the product. Link Planner, that has always been a software that we've offered for free just to kind of do a little bit of planning before you actually purchase anything. On the supports point-to-point, point-to-multipoint. Obviously supports UPnP for 4000 as well. I'm not going to go through all of them, but that's you get the idea, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are very, very familiar with our offerings. Scalable and interference tolerant beam steering and dynamic filtering allows you again to get around obstructions way better than we have been able to in the past. TDD sync with GPS synchronization, obviously it allows you to be to eliminate all self-interference and maybe interference from neighbors as well. And the radio support up to 120 clients per sector. Again, quick to deploy, quick to offer large packages, and quick to to connect customers. We saw this during COVID. Nothing could connect more underserved people than wireless did in the industry. I think this is initially what had gotten the FCC thinking about allowing wireless internet service providers access to more spectrum so they can do higher packages to the end customer, so they are able to work from home, to school from home, browse the internet, so on and so forth. A little bit about the product on the EPnP side. So like I mentioned before, the separate SKUs, 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz are separate hardware. The 5 gigahertz can do up to 3 gigabits per sector. It's an 8x8 multi-user MIMO AP. It supports up to 80 megahertz channels and 1024 QAM modulation. 6 gigahertz, this platform is only a 4x4. We didn't really, what we wanted to do with the 6 gig, we wanted to make sure that entry level, everybody can use it and deploy it as much as possible. Doing a 4x4 keeps the cost of the access point lower than if it was an 8x8. But we figured that we could use much larger channels, 160 megahertz channels, to compensate for leaving it a 4x4 multi-user MIMO, right? So that allows us to keep the price down, but the large channels and the high modulation in the 4096 QAM allows you to do up to 2.5 gigabits to a single subscriber, which we'll cover here in a little bit as well. Again, going back to what we discussed on the 802.11ax chipset, a lot of people have deployed 802.11n and AC Wave 2. This chipset is, I would say, 50 times more performant than any chipset that we've seen with the AC Wave 2. It is now capable of, like I mentioned, operating in the noisy environment with downlink and uplink OFDMA. So it's able to actually, if it finds some noise, it's able to ignore it and operate coexisting with that noise. It operates a lot better in near line of sight, maybe some cases even no line of sight, much more powerful processing power. Longer OFDM symbols gives you about 20% higher throughput at the same modulations and same channel sizes. So again, a lot of horsepower under the hood. 1024 QAM, and with the 6 gigahertz connectorized SM and access point, you can actually achieve the 4096 QAM. And of course, downlink and uplink multi-user MIMO capabilities now as well. So again, if you've tried some other of our products, this product, it's really, really hard to compare it to the older ones when it comes to performance in the field and throughput, just because this standards-based chipset, it's come a long, long way from the previous standards-based chipsets. So those of you guys that might not be as familiar with the band, so what's going on? So the FCC decided to release 850 megahertz of spectrum. You could see it at the bottom of this chart. So the EPnP 4600 supports actually all of that. For the Canadian customers, you have that additional spectrum of 100 megahertz. So it's actually up to 950 megahertz with the Industry of Canada. You're going to say, okay, 160 megahertz channel that you're talking about, those are unachievable. We know that from 5 gigahertz. That is not true. We expect people, especially that are more remote than others, to have no issues finding 160 megahertz channel, since this is really just a greenfield spectrum minus some of the license links that have been deployed. The automatic frequency coordination, which is the AFC, we'll talk about that. I'll leave that for now. Another very important point is that now you have this 850 megahertz of spectrum that you can operate at 36 dBm of the IRP. That is extremely, extremely important. because before with 5 gigahertz, you only had Uni 1 and Uni 3 that you could do that. So spectrum was limited. It was just a little over 250 megahertz of spectrum. Now you have, 850. So, almost 4 times more that you could use at that 36 dBm of VIRP. Obviously, our products that we offer are the 4600 and the 46L on the access point side. The 4600 being a 4x4, the 4600L being a 2x2. Like I mentioned, wide channels and 4096 QAM modulation, integrated AFC, so operating our products through using our CN Maestro NMS, integrates you with the AFC right away. And of course, last but not least, the price per performance, which we discussed, due to it being a standards-based chipset, it allows you to keep the cost of the hardware extremely low. Canada is going first. So actually, this is a little older slide. I decided to leave it. I didn't know how many Canadian customers would be on there, but Qualcomm AFC is approved by ICED. So Industry of Canada has approved 6 gigahertz, and Qualcomm is its first AFC provider. We have our certifications in progress, and I'll talk a little more about that. But Canada was about, I believe it was about maybe a little over a month ago that they announced the release of 6 gigahertz, and then the US came next a few weeks back, 2 or 3 weeks ago, when they announced the opening of the band. So what's the AFC? This kind of gives you a good schematic to show you how it works from the actual hardware to the FCC database. So what the AFC is put there to do is really, quote unquote, police the band. So they're protecting the incumbent licensed microwave link. So when the FCC said we're releasing 6 gigahertz of spectrum, the carrier said you're not going to do that because everybody's going to, deploy this as an unlicensed product. It's going to interfere with our licensed microwave links. So the FCC said, well, we'll protect you. We'll create this entity that will actually make sure that if you're operating a licensed band in an area, you get priority, and that band cannot be used for multi-point. That particular channel cannot be used for multi-point. So that's exactly really what it's meant to do and what it's meant for. So the AAP and the SM check with the AFC once every 24 hours. It is important to remember that when you guys buy our devices on the EPMP side, the access point and the connectorized subscriber module do have a GPS module in it. However, when you do purchase an integrated SM, which most of you guys that will deploy this will mainly use that, you will need to get an external GPS pod. Again, the reason the AFC must know the location of the radios at all times. It's extremely important in order to be able to have the AFC be as accurate as possible to protect the incumbent. So just remember that as a little bullet point. This QR code, this takes you directly to our website, and it gives you all the details and all the information that we have on our 6 gigahertz platform, and all the spec sheets, all the case studies, everything that comes along with that should be able to be found here when you scan the QR code. This to kind of give you an idea of what you should expect per line, right? So per connection from the AP to the SM on a light sector, medium sector, or a very dense sector. Obviously, 6 gigahertz is all clean spectrum, provides performance over range, which is huge, right? Before we were never able, other than maybe 60 gigahertz and some of the higher frequency products, to get gigabit plus speeds over 2-3 miles. Now it's possible with the opening of the 850 megahertz and 6 gigahertz. Superior market price. Obviously, there's only a few manufacturers that provide 6 gigahertz. There's really only 2. I think that's really us and another competitor. We are at a fraction of the cost of the other competitor. So, for a lot of the 6 gigahertz deployments, we do expect 4600 to be a major competitor and a major player. And as you can see, per line, like I mentioned before, the cost is about $370 on the high end if you only have a handful of subscribers, or you could get as low as $250. So your ROI could come as quickly as less than 6 months. So something for everybody to think about as you're moving forward and as you're looking for ways to increase your capacity into your network. Comply with the market offerings today wirelessly while you do it at a very low cost. So ePMP 4600, we've talked about it a little bit. So up to 4 gig per sector, covers the entire 6 gigahertz spectrum. So it doesn't leave anything out, even the additional 100 megahertz that's available in Canada. It's a 4x4 multi-user MIMO access point. If you guys are familiar with the ePMP 3000, it's a very, very similar look. But obviously it supports the 6 gigahertz band, supports up to 160 megahertz channels, and 4096 QAM modulation on the AP to the connectorized SM. The Force 4625, which is the integrated radio, that only supports up to 1024 QAM. So you lose a little bit of modulation, but we expect you to use those at for the packages at around a gig or so. So, and again, the software roadmap, AFC support, and I have another slide that will cover that. We'll talk about that shortly. TDD sync is available up to 120 subscribers per sector, like I mentioned, and link planner functionality now, so you can find this product in link planner. This is the family portfolio. So if we start from right to left, you see the ePMP 4600L, that's the 2x2. So that's what we usually use as a micro pop. A lot of people like to use horn antennas. We have those available. So for your smaller sectors where you're never gonna really have density and a 2x2 access point would do, the 4600L is a great option. The ePMP 4600, that is a for your macro sites, for your larger sites, where you could either use it with horns, you could use it with a 90-degree sector, which we always recommend, and we always do like I mentioned before, AV/AB frequency reuse. To deploy a sector, 4 sectors on a tower, you use only 2 frequency pairs. And then on the subscriber side, you have a lower cost 4625 that is an integrated 25 dBi gain antenna subscriber module. And then you also have a connectorized version of the subscriber module. Now the connectorized version does cover that higher modulation. So this is where you're gonna have the multi-gigabit packages sold to businesses or maybe some homes that are interested and that would want it. So this is what we would recommend for the higher tier package. Okay, software plan of intent. So as you can see, some of the things that we've already done, but the main milestones are the 5.7, which will be a beta release, we are hoping, and don't quote me on this, depending on how things go and depending on how our approval goes with the FCC, this could be released as the beta as early as next week. We expect to have this fully released by the end of April, so general to the general public by the end of April or the latest beginning of May. Again, a lot of these things, as you can see, official AFC support, we're still waiting on our certification on our subscriber modules in order to be able to release that, so everybody can mass deploy it if you don't have an experimental license. And then down the line, we'll obviously make changes and add features as needed and as the market usually demands. From a regulatory update, okay, so this is important with the FCC. So the DFS band approval in Canada and the FCC 5.4 and 5.2, 6 gigahertz in Canada. Most likely by the end of the month, the AFC will be approved for all 4600, 46C, and 4625. AP has been approved. The SMs are still pending, both fixed and standard client. In the US, same thing. AP has been approved. The SM is just pending approval. As soon as that happens, the AFC will be approved on the ePMP 6000. I'm sorry, on the ePMP 4600. Now, this is not a matter of if, this is a matter of when. The FCC kind of works at its own speed. We expect this on a, if I was a betting man, I would probably say within the next couple of weeks at the most, but you never know, and that has nothing to do with us. We've turned in all the testing, all the paperwork that they need from Cambium, and it was all turned in at the same time with the APSMs. It just takes longer to go through everything else that's going on. So I will keep you posted on that. Yeah, just look out for news and newsletters from us. We'll keep everybody posted as this is happening, but it's extremely close. That everything has been approved. Everything will be ready to go. We wanted to share some field trials. It's easy to talk about the products and the specs and what the chipsets can do, but how about real world, right? So this is one of our service providers in Texas. As you can see, this was utilizing 6 gigahertz. It was an experimental license at the time. This was sometime last year when this happened, so about half a year or so ago. This was 4600 4x4 AP and the 4600C, so the subscriber modules that are connectorized. And as you could tell, capacity is pretty impressive. Downlink 1.5, uplink 850 megabits on a half a mile. Similar on site number 9. But what's even more impressive, this is short range, kind of half a mile, give or take range. What's more impressive is these numbers at 1.5, 2 miles, where you're still getting well over a gigabit of aggregate throughput. Again, speeds that you have never been able to achieve at this distance. And of course, this distance is going to get longer. You're going to drop some of that modulation. You're going to drop some of that throughput, but you'll still be able to operate, high capacity over long distances, longer than you've ever been able to before, because of because of this new spectrum being available. Wanted to also briefly chat about, so the EPMP 4000 is a family of 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz. 5 gigahertz spectrum is still very valuable. A lot of you guys have stuff deployed. The 4500 will be backwards compatible with some of the SMs for those of you guys that have deployed Force 300s, Force 200s, Force 100s out there. It will be backwards compatible. There's actually a beta, and it will be released, like I mentioned before in the previous slide, will be released hopefully general by the end of this month. So look out for that. So that's where the 4500 would be a great replacement for existing networks or net new networks. Like I mentioned before, the performance we're seeing with near and no line of sight has been amazing. We've had customers say, where before my EPMP 3000 couldn't even connect to a Force 300, now I'm passing 200 megabits of capacity at very good modulation. So again, these radios, and because of these chipsets, have made it very, very, very far in the technology realm of fixed wireless broadband. Kind of walk you quickly through the portfolio. I'll start on the right of the screen again. EPMP 4500L, that is our 2x2 light AP. This is our micro pop. We do have a connectorized version of the full AP, so the 4500C. This is, we're working with our partner RF Elements on actually coming up with some good antennas and different designs for you to be able to operate smaller degrees and things like that on your antenna pattern. So be on the lookout for that. And then of course the EPMP 4500, that's the integrated 8x8 radio, which is actually all of this gear is shipping today. So everything I've talked about so far has been shipping since EPMP 4500, probably for about 9 months now, and EPMP 4600 platform that has been shipping for about 1.5 years now. So definitely getting to being the maturity of the product. There's maybe still a few software things that we need to figure out, but no doubt, especially as these products get deployed more and more, no doubt that these products will be bulletproof, and you'll be able to deploy them the same way you've deployed 1000, 2000, and 3000. you know, and optimizing them to offer the highest capacity while being the most spectral efficient. So, and then on the subscriber side, ignore the 4525 that won't be available in the US. The 4525, the FCC and IC SKU that is available today, that is shipping, and then the 425 and the 400 see an integrated and a connectorized subscriber as well. Those were the initial two that we had when the AX platform came out. We used them in point-to-point configurations. Now they can also operate as a subscriber module for the 4500. And our subscriber modules, if you guys are not familiar with it, can operate in point-to-point configuration, both the 5 and 6 gigahertz platforms. Some of the field results, again, I wanted to share some of the capabilities that we spoke about before. If you look at the picture to the left, like clearly see this radio going through trees. Don't remember what the specs are, 200 meg, up to 200 meg services on a 40 megahertz channel, which is, you know, pretty impressive, assuming that it's going through, it almost looks to me like a no line of sight type of situation. So again, things that some of the 802.11 chipsets have not been able to do before. Now it is very, very easy, you know, to get the performance out of these radios. This also shows you the scalability of the 4500, up to 47 subscribers. If you notice, some of them are the Force 4525, so that's the new SM, the new AX chipset, but you have 8 Force 300s and 6 Force 200s backwards compatibility, and you're still able to get, you know, to get those, keep those subscribers connected while you swap out the access point for higher performance, and allowing you to add, you know, higher packages and add more customers due to the near and no line of sight capability. So we'll cover, we'll give everybody, if you guys have questions like we mentioned before, if you can put it in the question or the chat, either one, and we'll be able to look at those a little later. I see there's a few questions, and we will cover those at the end. Not much left to go, a few more minutes. Wanted to also talk about our other 6 gigahertz platform in the 450. 450 has obviously been a staple for Cambium for many, many years. Like we always used to say, this is what keeps the lights on at Cambium. We've deployed stuff ever since Canopy to all the way to PMP 450 now. We call it the V because this is our 5th generation 450 platform. And obviously has made a ton of improvement. This radio, today we are shipping a 4x4 access point and a 4x4 subscriber module. This radio is capable of operating in both 5 and 6 gigahertz simultaneously. So where with ePMP, you need 2 separate platforms to cover both bands. This one, just one, will cover both bands. Think of this radio as a dual core radio, kind of. It supports 2 carriers. So, and each carrier can go up to 100 megahertz channels. Again, this is where it's going to make that transition from an existing 450 network extremely smooth. So you take down a 450i, maybe even in some cases a 450m, where it makes sense in 5 gigahertz. You swap it out with the 450v, backwards compatibility with the existing subscribers that are deployed in the field with the 450, while you can add one of the other carriers. So you have one of the carriers on 5 gigahertz, support the existing subscribers deployed. The other carrier you can deploy into 6 gigahertz, offering larger channels and therefore being able to upgrade a site to higher speeds. So extremely, extremely important. And the channels don't have to be the same size. You can have a 20 megahertz channel on 5 gig and a 100 megahertz channel in 6 gig. The backwards compatibility, while it can still grow, is extremely, extremely key and important. We always want to make sure we support your investment. We understand the highest cost in your network is a forklift, especially on the subscriber side. So we try to stay away from that. That's why with Cambium, you're always going to see backwards and forwards compatibility on both ePMP and 450. So we talked about the 2 carrier 4x4 access point. And we do have a 4x4 high performance subscriber module that is actually shipping today. same thing, capable of 2 by 100 megahertz channels. You know, being able to do over a gigabit in speeds up to, you know, almost 1.5 gig per single subscriber. Then later this summer, we will be shipping a 2x2 subscriber module. This will be a lower cost subscriber module. It will cover both 5 and 6 gigahertz, and it is able to do up to about 750 megabits per single SM. So again, you know, high performance out of these radios as well, as we move forward. This kind of reiterates what we talked about. The most important thing you remember today is that the 4x4 access point covers both 5 and 6 gigahertz. It comes in an integrated 90-degree sector, and backwards and forwards compatibility with subscriber modules deployed. So it supports the older subscribers, supports the current subscribers, and it will support the you know, the 6 gigahertz subscribers coming out in the 4x4 and the 2x2 as well. So and obviously you could do carrier aggregation at the sector to offer that high 1.5 gigabits of capacity. On the subscriber side, again, I mentioned this as well. It's a 4x4 multi-user MIMO radio. It is capable of doing 2 carriers of 100 megahertz channels. Think of these as, you know, like I mentioned, 2 radios in one. You can aggregate the speed, and you can offer that gigabit capacity to a single home or a single business. It has a high gain antenna. I believe it's 25 dBi as well. The 450V 2x2 subscriber module, this is not going to be available until about August timeframe. Again, this is going to be the lower cost subscriber. It's going to do only about half the bandwidth, about 750 megabits or so, give or take. You know, expect this, like I mentioned, this summer, towards the end of the summer timeframe. Also wanted to make sure I mention our QoE product. For those of you guys that have this deployed, you've deployed this for a reason. You've seen extremely great results from it. You know, it does things like TCP. You know, it reduces latency. It does traffic shaping, so on and so forth. So this is, and it's manufacturer agnostic. You could use this with any manufacturer, anything you deploy today. If you don't have a single Cambium radio deployed in your network, you could absolutely use this to, you know, to deploy, you know, to monitor your network and make sure you get the best, you know, the best performance, and you're as good with your capacity as you can be. We also offer a free trial on this. You could put it on any type of appliance, or depending on the throughput that you're running on your network, or we can lend you an appliance to do some testing. We usually give people, I don't remember if it's anywhere from 30 to 60 days, I believe, depending on the scope. You know, anytime you want to take a look at this and test it, we will allow you to test it at no cost. So if it's just something that you've heard about, that you've seen people post on WISP forums and other things like that, on the Cambium forums, feel free to reach out to myself, and I can certainly, or the Winncom team, and I can absolutely put you, you know, in contact with our product management team, and we can get you a free trial, and we can help you with testing and so on and so forth. So. CN Maestro, obviously we discussed about this last but not least. Something I didn't cover with the AFC. So in order to run our 6 gigahertz platform, you would have to use our CN Maestro. Again, there's no cost to it. There's also no cost for the AFC. It's a question that frequently comes up. There's actually a charge for it, but it's pretty minimal. Cambium took the stance of, we're just going to include it in the price of our radio. We're not going to charge anybody any reoccurring or any yearly or any software or anything like that. So for you to operate CN Maestro, it's actually, there's no cost, and it supports, I would say by this point, almost all of our products, including point-to-point and point-to-multipoint and Wi-Fi platforms, and now support of our fiber platform and our switching. So again, pretty pretty awesome software, and especially that it comes at no cost. So keep that in mind. There's a paid version. It offers you a few other features, but you don't need that in order for you to operate the network. That's something that if you'd like to purchase, you're more than welcome to. If not, it's not needed to run a network today. Last but not least, we mentioned this, but we'll do a quick repetition. Link Planner. Link Planner has been around for 10 plus years. It's a software that we continue to develop, and this just allows you to pre-engineer a network to the best of your ability before you purchase something. This gives you a good idea what you should expect throughput wise. This should give you a good idea. You incorporate it with Google Earth. You obviously have to make sure that you consider line of sight, but it's definitely a good planning tool that can get you started in the right direction. And then CN Heat, that's our heat mapping service, our subscription type service, which we use LiDAR data to do precise coverage plans. Between CN Heat on a side and Link Planner, I promise you there isn't much that you've left unturned in order for you to make sure that that deployment will work out well, and everything will be will perform to the best of its ability as you plan on new sites and new deployments. Okay, let's see. That is all I had. Let's see questions, and I see there's a few questions in here. Let's see. Yes, we can hear you. Okay, we've been over that. Is it similar to TV white space? Not very familiar with TV white space, to be honest with you. Not sure why you asked that. Is this similar performance-wise? I know TV white space is a very, very limited spectrum. It's a low tier spectrum. It's below 900, if I remember correctly. And it's not that much spectrum, so you're not offering high packages. You're talking about if you're in the middle of nowhere where you have no other options and your only option is to do, to get any kind of capacity through heavy foliage and stuff like that. TV white space could be, an option. I know that I know no one has really been able to make that a product work in TV white space. And I do know that usually the products that have been in TV white space have been extremely expensive. So it's not like TV white space. I would say no. It's more like, if you want me to compare it to something, it's 6 gigahertz is more like 5 gigahertz. If that is the question, what 6 gigahertz is more like. Okay, why did you change the PoE from 30 volt to 56 volt for the clients? I thought there were still 30 volts. At least some of them were. If we did change them, and of course Brian would ask this question that I don't know, you'll have to take that up with Sakid. I'll take it offline with you though. I'll go back and I'll check. 6 gigahertz about AFC. You have to have CN Maestro, the AP coordinate without that. Okay, so my understanding is that in order for you to operate our 6 gigahertz platform today, you have to use the AFC. Only option today is to use it through CN Maestro. So you will have to use CN Maestro. Again, those of you maybe not familiar with CN Maestro. CN Maestro is, you could either host it yourself or you could do a cloud version of it. You could, again, it's free of charge. It doesn't cost anything, and it makes, it makes the visibility from the AP to the customer pretty unique, and we have a ton of features. So I'm not sure why you would want to use that, but my understanding is that today, if you're deploying our 4600, you have to use our CN Maestro in that, and you do not need the paid version, the X version. A lot of people ask that, do we need to go to CN Maestro X to operate the 6 gigahertz and the AFC? The answer to that is no. Okay, this is a longer question. Is Uni 6 and 8 available for full power? Correct. So yes, they are. That's what the approvals that we're going through right now, from my understanding from our engineering team, we are waiting to get that full approval of 36 dBm of VIRT. I understand that Uni 6 is not for use by a standard power device, but a lower power indoor device. So let's go back here. Give me 1 second. Which one was Uni? Go back to this slide real quick. The spectrum, okay, it was this one. So Unify and Uni 7, I'm not, oh, Uni 6 and Uni 8. Yes, you are correct. That is for the indoor. Sorry, I was switching them. You are correct. That is for low power indoor devices. That's for Wi-Fi use only. So something that maybe I didn't mention, and I apologize if I missed that. It's 1.2 gigahertz of spectrum. 850 is for broadband, which is Uni 5 and Uni 5 and Uni 7. The other Uni 6 and Uni 8 are only for Wi-Fi devices. If I misspoke or if I said something different, I apologize. That is, you are correct. It's only the 850 megahertz, the 500 in Uni 5, and the 350 in Uni 7 available for outdoor use. Everything else is Wi-Fi indoor use only. That is correct. Just to confirm, a CPI will not be needed to install 6 gigahertz like CDRS brand does. That is correct. You do not need any kind of certification or anything like that. You can just deploy it just as you would 5 gigahertz. The only thing the AFC does is it protects the incumbent licensed microwave links. That is the only function that the AFC has. It doesn't, it doesn't work on neighboring interference from other multi-point networks or anything like that. The only things it does, it's just a database. So, for example, my understanding is that in our interface, if you will, if you deploy a radio and it connects to the AFC, it will actually black out the channels that are used by licensed microwaves. So you won't actually be able to pick them. That's the whole point. And that's why we would want to, you would want to use CN Maestro with the AFC. Again, there's no cost on the AFC, there's no cost on Maestro, and it allows you to stay away from all the licensed microwave links. And I believe in order for you to even operate it and turn it on, you need CN Maestro anyway. So that's the 450V integrated access point have an internal GPS for the AFC requirement. That's also a great question. I believe it does. Let's go back to the, yes, or if you do the syncing, you're gonna need some GPS device anyways. Give me 1 second. Let me go to those slides. It's a good question and we can take it offline. Honestly, I don't remember. I know on the 4600, let's see, I'll tell you their MIMO frequency support backwards and forwards. So we would, usually when we deploy 450 access points, we ask, we tell you that if you deploy 4 sectors anyways to do AB frequency reuse. I am not sure. We will get back to you, Richard, with that. I honestly, I don't know if it does have one. I don't believe it has one integrated. I believe since we use GPS sync on all of our 450 networks anyways, you would have to get one in order to support the GPS synchronization. So that would be my guess. So I would say no, but we can take that offline. Maybe Don, you can make a note of that, and we can get back to Richard with that. Since the radio needs GPS for the AFC, what happens if you have a defective GPS antenna and it goes offline? Does it mute the radio? I believe it does, because that's why it pings it every 24 hours. So you need to make sure that everything is functioning. I don't know. Again, it's a question that I would ask. I would have to ask Saqib. I can get back to you with both of those, Brian. I'll do a little bit of digging and I will get back to you. How can we get a copy of your slides? You can. We will share them. There will be a few slides that I will leave out, but I can share the rest of them with Don, and Don can distribute them to everybody that has registered for this. There is no interface on the AP for the GPS. The 450V SU does. Okay, I will confirm that. Got it. And then thank you. Okay. I don't see any other questions. I will take the ones that we've had that I wasn't able to answer. I know yours too, Brian, and then I'll look. I'm pretty sure. I don't think I think you are correct. The 450V does not have a GPS integrated. So, but I'll look into that and I will get back to you. Any other questions from anybody? I know we still have a few minutes. If not, we can absolutely end it here. If you guys need my contact, I will. You can reach out to your Winncom sales rep or Dawn, and I can send you the they can send you my contact, and then we can get in touch that way. Or I'm also available on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, so you guys can always ping me there as well. So again, I appreciate everybody's time. Hopefully it was a useful session for you guys. I look forward to hearing more from you. I look forward to hearing some of your 6 gigahertz deployment stories. I think this is a game changer for the industry. I think 6 gigahertz is something we've been waiting for 3 to 4 years. So I think now that it's finally here, I think everybody should at least do a little bit of testing and see the capabilities. Everything we've seen so far with experimental licenses up until now, it's been pretty amazing and pretty good. So once again, thank you guys. Thank you for the support as always. And if you guys have any additional questions or need anything, let us know. I know Winncom does have current stock in all of these products, 4500, 4600 for 50V. If you guys would like to see a quote, please again reach out to your sales rep from Winncom. They can share some pricing with you. And then if you guys have any questions on the technical side or anything else, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Winncom, and we will surely address your questions and your concerns. Since I don't see anything else, I appreciate everybody's time, and we can now end the session.